Hello there, everyone. My name is Christian Karasiewicz, and you're listening to and watching episode 84 of the Launch Your Live podcast, and in this case, Amazon Live show. So, today we're going to be talking about how to pick the best capture card for live streaming. And this is, it's a very popular topic when it comes to live streaming because, well, you need a capture card in order to basically do some on-screen captures and encoding your video feed. So good to see everyone. Thanks a lot for tuning in to the Launch Your Live podcast and Amazon Live show. And I'm going to push this live over on Amazon, by the way. So we're over here live on Amazon as well. So if you happen to go to launchyour.live/EP84, you can watch us live on Amazon. And I'm joined today by Marco Novo. And as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about capture cards. So, Marco, do me a favor. You ready to come in? Fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to bring Marco in and we're going to talk capture cards. We're going to start off by talking about like what is a capture card. We're going to also then go into, who really needs a capture card, because some people need them, some people don't. And then we're going to talk about some of our favorite ones as well. We're going to even show you a few of the products. We've got a few of them here with us. So I'm going to go and bring on Marco. Marco, it is great to have you here for episode 84 of the Launch Your Live podcast. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me. Let's talk about this topic. So interesting.
Yeah. So okay. So let's do this. What is a capture card? Let me have you put you on the spot and have you talk about what a capture card is.
Okay, the capture card is a device which allows you to the main usage that people do from capture card is bringing the feed of DSLR camera, action cam, DSLR, mirrorless action cam, and a camcorder. Okay, and it turns the signal, which usually they are HDMI, to a signal understandable by your computer to bring it to the feed and to feed the image of your live stream. Okay, because I think it's kind of the same thing that a mixer does with the XLR microphone. It turns the signal, the language. It's kind of a translator to your image. In this case, in the microphone, it's the sound. Okay, so with this kind of devices, you can go to the next step, next level in the image. For instance, instead of using a webcam, which is good, okay, but it's not the best option because usually they don't have the same quality image of DSLR, mirrorless camcorder, and B, using this kind of cameras gives you the allowance to have more control over the image, which is really important if you want to get the next level. The other thing, and this happened to me before I start my live stream journey, I already have a DSLR camera. Okay, so instead of using a not so good or buying a not so good webcam, I already had the camera, so I just had to bought capture card in order to use this camera as a webcam as well. So this could be a good option if you, for instance, if you already have a DSLR camera to take some pictures or in your vacations or when you do your walking arounds, or if you want to go, you're using a webcam, but now you want to give that step, improving the quality. So besides having a camera, you need to go to buy this capture card as well.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's an excellent point, actually. So capture cards, you need them if you want to do any sort, like to use, as you mentioned, a DSLR or a mirrorless camera, for example, and a DSLR, whether it's Canon or Nikon or Sony, who's making mirrorless cameras with their Alpha, the A6100, 6200, or I think they have 6200, 6300, 6400 models. By the
Yes.
way, for everybody that's tuning in, can Marco, can you do me a favor? Can you actually check our Amazon live feed and let me know if that's actually showing up for you? I'm not seeing the
Yes,
video feed
yes,
over there.
yes, yes.
Okay, cool.
And by the way, Yusuf started following. Thank you so much, Yusuf.
Thank you very much, Yusuf. We really appreciate that. So okay, so we talked about like what a capture card is. Okay, so who needs a capture card?
Well, for instance, if you don't have this device, which we have as well on the carousel, like Anthem Mini, or this family, family of products.
Yeah.
And if you want to connect your devices, your DSLR camcorder or mirrorless camera to the computer, you need to have these devices. Even though lately major brands like Canon, Nikon,
Fujitsu,
Fuji, and also Sony, they came with software which allows you via USB to use the feed of just connecting USB. You can use directly your camera to the as a webcam. It's not the same quality. Okay, there's some limitation. For instance, in the frame per second rate, there are some limitations when you use directly connected via USB. So if you want to have these cameras connected to your computer, yes, you need a capture card.
But yeah, and I love this point, by the way, that one of our viewers mentions, and he says people who want to use the best cameras with HDMI output need a capture card.
Yes.
And this is an excellent point, because here's the thing. So as Marco mentioned, you have like, it basically goes into like almost like 3 tiers. And so the base tier is using the webcam on your laptop. That's like the bare minimum for a camera, right? And often when you're using this camera, it's not going to look that great. You have to have really good lighting. Like, yeah, you can get it dialed in, but there's only so much that it can do. You also can't zoom in usually, especially with that webcam that's built into your computer. You can't zoom in very well with it, right? And so that's going to be like your bare minimum for live streaming. Now, then when you take it to the next level, okay, I got an external webcam. The problem with an external webcam, okay, it's about, about 1 inch to 2 inches deep, but that doesn't allow you, much in terms of, well, I want to zoom in on myself. Well, if you use the software that comes with it, it zooms in, but it doesn't always look that great. If you have good lighting, it'll actually make it look better, but it won't be great. And then the other thing with that kind of camera is, webcams are USB. So they're straight up USB. And so USB, it only carries certain things via that USB cable. And so, you have limitations there on the data rate, for example. I realize for a lot of people, if you're listening or watching like this, might go over your head. Data rate, the bit rate, all the other quality, those are some limitations, obviously, with the webcams. And then you get into the more expensive cameras. And by the way, most webcams they're a few $100s. So they might be $70. It's not going to look as good as a full-on DSLR or mirrorless camera for the most part. So you can only, like I said, you can only squeeze so much out of it. Again, I want to highlight a great comment from my friend Dimebag Darren here saying, sensor size and optics, they matter. Yes, they definitely matter. And so that's the thing. When you're looking at a webcam, you get a very small sensor. That means it needs a lot of light. But the problem with that is that if you put too much light, it's going to blow out the picture quality. It's not going to look very good. So this is where somebody would then say, well, hey, I'm leveling up my live streams. I'm going from the built-in webcam to the external webcam to a DSLR. Now, in order to make that work on your computer, you're going to need a capture card. And so, Marco and I have quite a few of these here, actually. So I've got one here. Marco's got a couple, I think, on his end. We're going to talk about these here in a second. But you need those for the most part to get your camera to be able to be recognized by your computer. And so you're going to have things like, for example, like you're going to have the Sony models, the Canon models, Nikon, Fujitsu, like pretty much any DSLR camera that will let you use it as a webcam. you're going to want to have that capture card. Basically, it offloads, if you just plug it in the computer and let the camera kind of do its thing, this is essentially, I mean, I guess if you kind of look at this, this is basically a converter of sorts, is what it does. So it converts that signal on your camera so that you can actually then use it for live streaming, things like that. So, Marco, let's do this. Let's jump into some different types of capture cards. I know you mentioned, for example, at the beginning, you mentioned that ATEM Mini. So can you do me a favor? Can you bring up the ATEM Mini? Let's talk about it. And then we're going to go into some of the other types of capture cards.
There you go. Oops.
So the ATEM Mini, by the way, Marco mentioned this earlier. If you're looking to live stream and you have a DSLR or a mirrorless camera that connects via HDMI, one of the best investments you can make is to get one of these. And this is the ATEM Mini. And they make different models of this. This one is $300. Okay. So this one's $300. There's one that's $800. There's another one that's $1,000. And, you could get the $300 model for this, and you'll understand, I think, why there's a lot of value in this. You could get this, and basically you don't need a capture card to use your DSLR or your mirrorless camera. You pretty much just plug it directly into this, and then it goes into your computer, and it does all of the conversion for you. This one, what really makes it super unique is that it has the ability to have 4 cameras attached to it. So if you think about it, if you needed a capture card because you wanted to have multiple angles on your live streams, you would have to buy potentially 4 capture cards, 4 separate capture cards. However, with the ATEM Minis, for example, any of the ones in their line, you only need one of these. And by the way, it's only $300. And $300, by the way, is this is a really good value for $300. It lets you have 4 cameras. It lets you add things like picture-in-picture, for example, on your screen. It lets you do transitions in between camera switches, things like that as well. So this is the $300 model, right, Marco?
Yes. And I think it's good to highlight what you mentioned because, for instance, this capture card I'm using, it's around $150. Okay, so if I want to bring another camera, I need to buy another one. And so I burned the budget. I had to this Blackmagic design ATEM. And the other thing is that it does other functions that this video capture card doesn't do, like switching cameras and this kind of things. So this is a more versatile device. It's not just a video capture card. So I think it's important to consider that as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to bring up a great comment here, by the way. Can you zoom in on that a little bit, Marco? So see if you can zoom in on the ATEM a little bit. Yeah. So the ATEM Mini, I mean, it looks like a keyboard basically. And you've got the ability to have your microphones there in the top left. You can, each set of buttons basically gets its own, view basically. And then on the back, you've got the audio, you've got the HDMI options. You've got the HDMI out. By the way, it does say that it has a webcam out. Just a heads up, by the way, it does not work with a webcam. So keep that in mind. You can't just plug a webcam into this. But if you're serious about live streaming, this is a great product to get. As I mentioned, there's a $300 model, there's an $800 model, and there's one that's well over $1,000. You cannot go wrong with any of them because they offer so much value. And one thing I want to actually mention real quick, by the way, about this, and I want to thank my friend NLTMW here for mentioning this. It's the fact that with the ATEM Mini, you get 4 HDMI signal sources, but these are not just limited to cameras. Yes. You can use them for various things. So, for example, let's say you wanted to run an iPhone or an iPad or a tablet or a Kindle Fire, any of those tablets, and you wanted to put them on screen, or you want to share what the screen looks like. So, for example, if this has 4 cameras on it for 4 camera options. So you can have 4 inputs for the cameras. And so one of them could be your primary shot of, for example, it could be a shot of like just you. Another one could be like a behind the scenes shot, for example. A third one could be an iPad. And then a fourth one could be a phone, for example. So if you wanted to easily show different views or show different things to your audience, all you have to do is literally push the button that's there for the camera source, and it will switch it to that camera. So it's a extremely valuable resource that also has the ability to do some of that conversion as well that you do need, that you normally would get with a capture card. So excellent point there, by the way, NLCMW. So I want to thank you, by the way, for I want to thank you for showing, or for mentioning that, because I think it's super important that we highlight that. So this is the ATEM Mini, and as I mentioned, there's a couple different ones. There's a $300 one, there's a $800 one, there's a $1,000 one. Really, they just add some little minor functions until you get to the $1,000 one, which basically is essentially it's two ATEM Minis together, because of the fact that it can have, I think, like 8 camera inputs. So you kind of have to think about it. So like if you're just wanting to use your, if you're like, hey, I'm just getting started with live streaming, you could spend, you could go buy just a separate capture card. But really, if it were me, I would consider something like this to start, just given, it allows you flexibility, it allows you to build, it allows you to grow with it. So I think it's a great product. So that is the ATEM Mini, and they make a few of them. Okay, Marco, where do we go from here in terms of, other capture cards? Like, what's the next type of capture card we need to look at?
I think we should talk about this in a budget capture card, because this could be a nice way to start.
Okay. What's the next one?
So that's how I started as well. Even though, and as Dimebag mentioned, if you want to have thinking about scaling in the future, this ATEM is an amazing option, because you can use up to 5 different outputs or inputs.
Yeah.
And this will be a nice option, because, for instance, buying these 2 devices like this, I will spend $300.
Yeah, exactly.
It's actually a no-brainer.
You would spend exactly. It makes so much sense. Okay, so let's show the next. What's the next type of? So when we actually get into capture cards, so if somebody's like, hey, you know what, I don't have $300, what kind of capture cards? What should they start looking at?
I said that when I wanted to start.
These, right?
Yes.
I want to see what does this one look like, by the way. And I thought that, I got to say, I thought I was hitting the bottom of the barrel when I had the $20 capture card. And by the way, we should talk about like a $20 capture card. In this case, this one. So, okay. So Marco, this is the DigiNow audio video. Here's the thing. I said that like $20 was what I thought the baseline was. How much is this one?
$9.99.
$10. So this is a $10 capture card.
And believe me, it has a pretty decent image.
Does it? Yeah. So this is a $10 capture card. Okay. So basically the way this one works, plugs in via USB, and then it has an HDMI connection as well. So obviously the USB is going into the computer. The HDMI is where your camera is connecting. Basically, it's going right into this capture card. Okay. So this is $10. Okay. So one question I have, I guess, is like, okay, so this is $10. Why should somebody consider this kind of capture card? Because, if I want to go get that ATEM Mini, for example, that's $300. I could buy like 30 of these, right?
Yes.
But is that something I need to consider? I mean, so this is $10. How good is the quality on this? Like, how long have you had yours? Is it a quality thing? Like, why would somebody buy the $10 one over the more expensive one?
I bought this one at least 2 years ago. Okay. And it has a pretty decent image, and so I think it's a good. If you don't, let's think about this. You don't have an amazing budget. You already had a DSLR camcorder, because lots of people have these devices at home. Okay, and just I want to give a try to live stream. Okay, and I don't want to sell to make a mortgage to start. I think this could be a nice a pretty decent option. Okay. Or if, for instance, you already have ATEM and you want to bring a kind of a playing camera, as I want to do for now. For instance, I have I have there some cameras I bought, and let's do these cameras to bring crazy angles or something.
Yeah.
And you don't want to spend too much because it's kind of just for fun. This could be a nice option.
Very cool. Yeah. And I got to say for here, and I'm going to say this again. I'm going to say this for, like Dimebag Darren and NLTMW who are also talking about this. And so, you could buy this $10 capture card, right? This $10 capture card. And it's great if you're just starting out. I mean, you're just starting out, like, if you're like, if you're not sure, like, so I think the way you should start is start with the webcam. That's the first thing I think I'd start with. But
Yeah,
for example, like buying a $10 capture card, maybe order that at the same time you buy your DSLR camera or your mirrorless camera, and see if you actually like it. For example, see if you notice a big difference. If you've been using a webcam, see how big of a difference it makes. It's $10. It's not very expensive at all.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and here's the thing. If you're like, well, hey, I'm not sure I'm going to do a lot of live streaming, then, getting that $10 capture card would be a good place to start, because it does allow you to experiment, allows you to see, is this where I want to go with things? Are things working? And in addition to that, I mean, obviously, again, $10, like, I wouldn't immediately say, well, go buy an A10 Mini if you've never used a capture card before. Start with a $10 one. If it breaks, you can always buy another one. So
yeah.
So okay, so so this is the $10 one that Marco is talking about here. Again, it's a Digital audio video capture card. It says 4K Cam Link, but it's not a 4K Cam Link, by the way. It's just an off-brand capture card. So keep that in mind. If you're just starting out and you want you need something cheap, $10 capture card. Okay. Yeah. Marco, where do we go from here with the capture? Talking about capture cards. Okay. So I bought, I've got the $300, like I've got the A10 Mini. I could start with that. If I decide I want to, move to something else, I go with this $10 capture card. What other types of capture cards are there on the market?
Well, we have this Cam Link, which is kind of the standard.
Yes. So I think we have the Cam Link, I think. And this is the thing. This is a $150 capture card. And I have one of these, by the way. Oh, and by the way, before we move into that, I do want to mention NLTMW. Thanks a lot for mentioning. If you're buying, like, even if you decide you want to go with something besides the $10 one, say you want to go with a little more name brand one, buy a name brand one, but buy a $10 cheapy one and keep it just in case. Because here's the thing. It doesn't matter if you buy the best quality, things break at times. So, pay attention to that, have yourself a spare in case something happens. Okay. So this is the next one. And Marco was mentioning that this is actually the one that a lot of people will use, and it's by Elgato. Let me show you all what that looks like. So this is the Elgato Camlink 4K. As you can see, I have one of these. I don't use it, but I don't use it because I also use an A10 Mini. So I have the Camlink, and this is what it looks like. It's kind of bulky, I guess you could say. Basically there's some conversion that goes on in here. It has USB-A on one end. And then on the other side, this is the part that sticks out of your computer. This is the HDMI cable. And so basically you plug this into your computer, and then your camera goes into this end, and this goes into your computer. And then your webcam should start working no problem. So that's the Camlink 4K. Now, in terms of 4K, I don't do streaming at 4K. I only do stream at 1080p, basically. Most places don't stream at 4K, but it is there in the off chance that if you're into gaming, things like that, you could use it for that sort of thing with your camera. Now, one thing I do want to mention, by the way, on this particular type of capture card, by the way, so this is the Elgato Cam Link, but another thing that you need to consider if you're going to be buying one of these is you're going to need to get an adapter of sorts. And I want to also show you some of these as well. So I dropped one of these in the carousel, but basically you're also going to need this. So this is, for example, this is an Aukey USB-A to USB-C capture, or sorry, I don't say capture. This is an adapter actually. So for example, if I have this kind of connection on my computer and I want to like plug this capture card in, as you can see, it's USB-A, right? So it's USB-A. So what I'm going to need is I'm going to need the adapter, and I'm going to have to basically do this. So I'm going to just plug it in like that. Just like that. So there's the capture card going into the adapter, and then plug that into my computer. So that is something you want to consider if you happen to be getting the Cam Link 4K, by the way. So let me show everyone what this one looks like, Marco. So this is the Cam Link 4K here. And in terms of price, this is where like things get interesting, right, Marco?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
$150.
Yes.
For this device that really doesn't look like it does much of anything.
Yeah.
$150 for this device. It plugs into your computer. But again, here's the thing. You could buy that $10 one. There's even a $20 one. Personally, I would get the more expensive one just because it's a better quality one for the most part. You know, so I tend to prefer these. But I do want to also mention NLTMW here is mentioning he has an Elgato Cam Link 4K in his main rig. He's using it with a Panasonic Lumix mirrorless camera. Works great. He only needs one HDMI input at this time, and the other 4 cameras he's using are USB webcams. So you kind of have to think about your setup. You know, if you own a whole bunch of webcams, you can plug those into your computer and use them as different camera angles. You know, and then you could have your main camera, the one that's in front of you or the one that you're showing the most detail with. And, you know, you could use your mirrorless DSLR, your standard DSLR on this type of, using this capture card. So, but the thing you got to remember is, again, price. Price is key here. $150 for one of these. Now, what I want to do real quick with this is I want to put it in perspective. So, Marco, we talked about the ATEM Mini at the beginning, and we said that it was $150. And it gave you 4 HDMI inputs. So you had 4 cameras that go into the one device, and then one cable comes out to your computer. Okay. So if you happen to have wanted to have, and you have to look at it like this, if you want to have the ability to switch camera angles with like the press of a button, for example, then maybe you want to consider that ATEM Mini, because it means you don't need one of these, or you don't need 4 of these, which would cost you $600. Instead, you could buy an ATEM Mini. Now, but the part that I think really makes it unique is that you could theoretically have 4 of these plugged into a computer, and then you could actually switch to, you know, those, you could bring all 4 of those camera angles up potentially. So that is something to have to, you know, to consider versus using the ATEM Mini, where you push a button and it only lets you pick one of the 4 cameras, not all 4 cameras. So that is something to think about. Another thing, though, that we want to make sure we think about as well, if you are getting a capture card. So, Marco, the first one I think you showed us, right? Can you show us your first one you had?
Here you go.
So this is the first one Marco had, right? And I want to just highlight something really important here. And it's the fact that it has this extension cable on it. And this is super important because basically what happens is he plugs this into his computer via USB, and then it gives him a little bit of cable to be able to then, you know, have the device, like, you know, not put so much strain on the port of his computer, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, but what I want to show you now with that. So, okay, so that's the one Marco has, right? But here's the thing. Now, okay, I'm going to go back to the one that I have. I got the ATEM Mini. Or sorry, I got the Cam Link. And so with the Cam Link here, this one, it plugs directly in your computer, and then it's literally, it's very, you know, rigid basically. So you plug in your computer, you know, for example, maybe you've got like, maybe you need to plug another flash drive in. You may not have enough space because this thing is pretty wide and it takes up a lot of space. So fortunately, you know, they do sell these, they sell them and they also have them in the box. This Cam Link comes with a USB to USB extension cable. So for those of you who need, you know, say you want to plug this into your computer, the Cam Link, all we're going to do here is pretty much just plug it in like this. And now I essentially have the same thing Marco has, except it costs what, 15 times? It costs 15 times the amount. it's it's more name brand versus not name brand. So
Yeah.
so this is yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There's something that I think it's important to talk about, because could be an issue if you're not aware of that. Because if you want to use your DSLR, your mirrorless, or your camcorder, you need to think as well about the battery. Okay, usually using your camera on video mode will spend more battery. Okay, and also the length of the live streamings are longer than the recorded videos. Okay, so one thing that you should have in mind is that you need to buy the dummy battery as well.
Yep.
Okay, it replaces the normal battery, but it's connected directly to the energy, and this will keep your camera working for more time than a normal battery will do, without having the scare, oh, I may get out of battery.
Yeah. No, that's an excellent point, Marco, about having a dummy battery as well. So like whatever kind of DSLR or mirrorless camera you're deciding you want to use, you are going to want to basically buy a dummy battery with it. And those do run you about $30 to $40. And basically what they do is it replaces the battery in your camera with a power cord, basically is what it does. So it plugs into the camera just like it normally would. It then has a power cord that comes out of the bottom of it and goes directly into a USB battery, a USB port, an AC adapter, for example, if you want to as well. So definitely something you want to consider, by the way, when you are using a mirrorless or DSLR camera. Okay, so this is the other, as I mentioned, this is the other capture card that we talked about. This is the most popular one, I think. I mean, I think it's safe to say this is the most popular, right, Marco?
Yes, it is. So
it's Elgato.
It's kind of the standard of the market.
Yeah, it's the Elgato Cam Link. And again, if you need to have multiple cameras plugged in, you would spend $150 or $10, depending on which one you get, for one of these. So you do want to make sure, just think long term. Is the ATEM going to solve all of those problems, or is the Cam Link what I need to kind of get started? Because again, it's a good product. It just does not let you grow very much. But that is the Elgato Cam Link, and as I mentioned, it's also $150 per capture card. So
yes,
okay, Marco, where do we go from here? Are there other capture cards that I need to consider?
Well, maybe because I have it here as well.
Yeah, sure. No, this is like a show and tell lesson, right?
It's Hd60s.
Okay.
Okay.
So this is also by Elgato, right?
Yes, I wanted to buy a good video capture card, so I bought this.
So show me. Okay, so what is So this is an Elgato one. So the base one we talked about was $10. That was a no-name one. We moved up to the Elgato Camlink 4K. That's $150 per. Now we're looking at the Elgato. This is what's the model, Marco?
Hd60s, and there's another one.
S. So what is this?
The S Plus.
So what does this do?
Well, it does almost the same. Okay, but you're allowed to have also this out HDMI. Okay. Which allows you, for instance, you can connect this to a monitor, okay? Yeah. And also it has this audio in.
Okay. So basically what this does is it lets you, so unlike the Elgato Camlink 4K, for example, it only captures video.
Yes.
The Hd60s has, if I correct me if I'm wrong on this, you got a USB cable, you've got an HDMI connector, and then you could also do an HDMI output, I assume, right? So
yes, and also an audio in.
And audio in, which basically means you could plug your camera directly into this for video and audio, and it would all feed through the Elgato Hd60s. Now, in terms of price, again, this is where it's going to get crazy. $300. So, Marco, do me a favor. Let's bring up that product. Let's show people a little bit, better view of this and some of the ports. And again, I mean, the thing you got to look at here with these is partly the price, but also kind of what you're looking to get out of it. I mean, if you're looking to just run, one camera, you don't necessarily need the super expensive ones. If you're looking to do things
Yes.
for like gaming, for example, so you can, and I like this point that that NLTMW makes here. He says that with the Elgato 60s, he uses it for streaming Xbox or PlayStation 4, so you can watch and play while streaming. So that's something you also have to think about is the application. If, for example, I'm using the A10 Mini and I can watch it because it has a monitor, a program out. So I can see exactly what I look like on screen versus, so while I'm actually doing it, I can see that. But yeah, so Marco, let me bring this one up so we can show people what it looks like. So this is the Elgato HD60s. As Marco mentioned, it's got audio and video on one side, and then it does have an HDMI out as well. Remember, HDMI out usually carries video and audio. So it's got a USB mini, it's got HDMI in, it's got the audio connection, and then on the flip side, it has, I think, another HDMI cable, right? Yeah, HDMI out. So that's something you got to consider. Now, this one is $300. So it's $300, which, that's decent for a capture card. This will work with a desktop. It'll work with a laptop. It'll work with a PC. It'll work with a Mac, for example. So you've got the Elgato 60s. Marco, what other? So that's if I'm like a laptop user, right?
Yes.
What if I'm on a desktop? Like, do I want to buy one of these USB ones? Like, what do I buy?
I think you can think about these built-in capture cards.
Okay, so you could buy a built-in capture card. Okay, so like let's do this. Let's show people what does the one look like if I'm on a desktop. Like, what do I need to look at or look for?
Okay, you can see up. There we go. And we keep talking about Elgato.
Here's the thing. They cornered the market. Let's just say that. They cornered the market of capture cards. They make a very good product. The Camlink Pro PCI capture card, 4 HDMI inputs, by the way. It's done at 1080p for 60 frames. Does 4K at 30 frames. It's got multi-view. It's got streaming. It's got video conferencing. It works with pretty much every platform. Pretty neat, right? So if you start to look at this one is more like, I guess, Marco, couldn't we say this is more like using an A10 Mini?
Yes.
Because it's got 4 camera inputs or 4 camera sources. And maybe we should just say it's got 4 inputs, meaning you can feed more than one source into it.
Yes. And
our buddy,
think about
I was gonna say, and our buddy NLTMW mentions, shockingly, he doesn't own one of those. So, but here's the thing: like, it really gets to the point where, like, okay, how many capture cards do I really need, and how complex do I want to make my setup?
And
so how much is this, by the way?
It's 560.
So 560. I think it's 560 for you. I think it's 360 for me. Again, we're in different locations. And you
three. 360. Sorry. It's 300. Yes.
300. Okay. And you have to have, here's the thing. You have to have, if you need the Elgato Camlink Pro, you need to have a desktop for this. So you can't plug it into a laptop. It goes into a desktop.
Yes.
So we kind of think, like, if we're tiering these, we're going from that $10 capture card up to the $150 one, up to the $200 something one, up to the $300, almost $400 one. Or you can really just kind of get rid of all those and just go with the A10 Mini as well, if you want to go that route. And then that goes from $300 to $800 up to over $1,000 for their A10 Mini Pro ISO Extreme. I think I said that right, by the way, because it's like a really long title. But definitely some options there, right, Marco?
Yes, and there's something about Elgato. It could be a name of a movie. Is that they have this kind of integrations between their products, okay, then you can use them kind of blended or together or as you want, okay, having this Stream Deck. So this integration allows you to give more flexibility, more diversity to your live streams. And I think this could be something that you should have in mind when you want to have a remarkable live stream.
And a couple of things you also have to remember, by the way, if you're going with the desktop model, if you're going to go with the, again, I'm going to pull this one up. If you're going to go with the Elgato Camlink Pro, this is for a desktop, but then you also need this one specifically. You're going to need an empty PCI slot on your computer. You're also going to have enough power to run it on your desktop. That's an excellent point, by the way, from NLTMW. So you can't just like plug this into like the cheapest computer that desktop computer you've purchased. You need to have something that's got enough horsepower to be able to run this. So again, I'm always going to go back to this. And I say this all the time for everybody who tries to live stream. You got to have a powerful computer. You got to start with the brain. The brain of your live stream is your computer. You know, if you have a powerful enough computer and you supply it then with the right kinds of things around it, like, hey, I want to put good lighting. I want to put a good, a good strong processor. I want to have a good video card. When you have all those things, it's going to make your picture quality look very, very, very good. But when you don't have it, it's going to basically be like sucking up resources. And I want to mention Dimebag Darren here, who mentioned this as well. You got to have enough resources to make this stuff run really well. And so if you're using, for example, this Elgato Camlink Pro, and it's let's just say it's, $400, just $360. If your computer costs like $200 or $300 or $400, chances are it's not powerful enough to run that capture card. It's going to take resources. It's going to take a really good computer to plug that in. So you want to make sure you make the right investment when you're buying, a capture card. Like, don't just buy the capture card. A lot of people, they use the computer that's a number of years old. Then they try to add on the capture card and they're like, well, why is it slow? And it's like, well, the computer is trying to do more than it can handle. And so you got to make sure, again, if you're just getting into live streaming, like start with that $10 capture card, see if your computer, for example, can handle that. And then just think about how you want to grow. I mean, I'd rather throw $10 away versus, I bought a, $150 or like a $300 capture card and found out that like, I also need to get another computer. I'd put the money towards the computer and then grow, at that point. So, so this is the Elgato Cam Link Pro for desktop.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome little product. Again, this is very similar to the ATEM Mini, the ATEM Mini Pro, the ATEM Mini Pro ISO, the ATEM Mini Pro Extreme, basically, but it goes into a desktop computer. So, Marco,
I think, talking about this situation, it's really important, the balance, okay? And I like to give the example. If you're buying a Ferrari, you won't be buying cheap tires because you don't have money, or you put cheap gasoline, or having a cheap insurance. Okay, it's kind of a lifestyle, if you allow me the analogy, and to put everything kind of together in the same stage, and it works properly, because it doesn't make sense buying a really expensive capture card and then you have a cheap computer, and it's the thing.
Exactly. And I want to just make a couple of points here as well from, again, these are just comments from our viewers, but Dimebag Darren says, again, if you're going to start streaming and you have a poor computer, or you have if you have a very basic computer, if you got a Chromebook, something like that, he's recommending using StreamYard for that. Again, we're using StreamYard right now to like broadcast this show. And so you can check out StreamYard, for example. We're using it to stream right now over to Amazon Live. But again, it's software that can help support your live stream. It helps reduce some of the need for resources and that are taxing your computer. So keep that in mind. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean,
Really good tool. Really good software.
yeah, oh, it's great. I mean, I've been using it to stream here on Amazon Live. I also use it for like also uh, other streaming shows. And the thing is, it's like, okay, so it makes things, again, as I mentioned, it reduces the stress on your computer because it does most of that heavy lifting for you. But it still is it's still, you still have to think about it like this. If you're going to get into streaming, use the software. It reduces some of the resources, but start making a plan. If you decide, you're going to keep streaming, to make the right investment into a computer that is powerful enough to do what you want to do. So, don't just like, again, there's only so much you can squeeze out of the computer. If you don't have the right one, it's going to struggle. And then guess what? You're going to get frustrated and you're going to say, well, hey, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Well, it's not working because you don't have the right resources that you need versus it's not working because of the equipment. So just keep that in mind.
Absolutely.
By the way, one other point I want to make real quick before I want to transition over to just a couple of other capture cards. But our friend NLTMW also mentions, if you are going to look at this $10 capture card that we talked about here today, the $10 one is the Digit Now audio and video capture card. It says it's 4K. It says it's a Cam Link. It's not. You have to keep in mind. You got to. Again, this is like they're going with that because they know that people are going to search for Elgato.
Yes.
And they're looking for Cam Link. And so that one's going to come up, but it's not going to be a good quality capture card. You got to keep that in mind. So, just remember, if you want to buy name brand, you're going to have to pay for that. It's a good quality one, but if you're just starting out, you can get by with a $10 one. And the other thing is, it also says it's like a 4K one, but it's really not. It's probably more like 1080p, maybe at the most, if it even does 1080. So just keep that in mind as well if you're considering getting that $10 capture card. Okay, Marco, what I want to do real quick is I want us to move over to want to just show a couple alternatives that are not Elgato branded ones. Okay.
Can we do that?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's talk about just a couple other ones. Let's go to let's pull up the Razer Rip Saw actually. So the Razer Rip Saw is another capture card that's on the market. And Razer is a gaming company. So they make a capture card, and this is more like a captured sort of device. And it's about $140 for this type of capture card, basically. And so let's pull this up, and then we'll talk about what this one is. Okay, so this is the Razer Rip Saw. And as you can see, so this one's unique in that it's a box. So this box, let's see if we can zoom in on that. I can barely see that because it's all black. So it has USB-C, it's got HDMI in and HDMI out, which basically means you plug your, let's see, so you'd plug the USB-C into your computer via USB-C. And then you have HDMI in, basically it's your camera, and then HDMI out would go to a monitor. So you could actually, so this is very similar to that Elgato Hd60s, which basically lets you see what you're actually doing with the capture card. So you can see the game, for example, that you're playing and things like that. So this is the Razer Rip Saw. This does full HD, 60 frames a second. And again, I mean, like, let's go back to that top photo, the one where it's, yeah, that one, keep going down. Let's go to the one where it shows the whole desk. Yeah, so let's zoom in on that. So this is the desk. And so as you can see, I mean, this basically plugs into your computer, and then you're just running some cables over to your laptop to make it really work. But this is the Razer product. Very good product. It is an Elgato Camlink alternative, I would say. So again, if you're going to buy, like, for $150, you're paying for the name brand and the software that comes with their product. And I will say Elgato makes great products. They have great software. So if you're buying the Elgato Cam Link, you're buying the Hd60s, for example, you're not just paying for, like, some extra, USB port, things like that. You're paying for the software and the quality that goes into it. So there is, though, if you do want an alternative, and it's a good alternative, this is what, about half the price, I think, of the Elgato the Hd60s. So just keep that in mind. Again, nothing wrong with this one. This is a very good product. This is by Razer, who is a gaming company. So I would consider something like this as well. If you're like, hey, I want the HDMI out option, which doesn't exist for the Cam Link 4K, but I don't have the budget for the $200 something one. This would be a good option to get. And our good buddy, by the way, NLTMW. Yep, absolutely. We're going to show a few more capture cards that you don't own. And here's the thing: I don't know which ones you do or don't own. So I thought maybe you had this one. Maybe you tried this one out too. Okay, so then the last actually 2 more items we want to talk about real quick. So let's talk about one of the more expensive options, Marco. Let's go and talk about let's pull up the AVERMEDIA capture card. Again, one thing you're going to notice here, by the way, these are, if you're somebody who is portable, for example, and you're portable and you want to be able to like take your camera with you, you may want to get this one, for example. This is the Elgato Cam Link. You may want to get this because you literally can just throw this in a bag, for example, with your camera, so you may want to get the Elgato Cam Link. Excellent product. Again, it's great for portability. Some of these other ones, for example, the one that you plug into the desktop, the PCI option. If you're unless you're lugging your computer around with you, you may not want that one. You may want some of these other boxes that plug directly in. So, Marco, what's this other product we have that we're going to bring up as another capture card option?
Well, this is an AVERMEDIA.
Okay.
You can as well.
So let's talk about the cost. What's the cost?
For 449, almost 50.
$450.
It's a little.
So $450, you can get the AVERMEDIA Live Gamer Bolt. This one is here's the reason why I think this one is actually so expensive. So I think partly, it supports PC and Mac, which is great. It does not support the new Apple M1 Apple Silicon chips. It does 240 frames per second in full HD, which is really good. And then the other thing is this has a Thunderbolt 3 connection. And so this is where this is why I actually think this is a little more expensive, because when you start getting into Thunderbolt requires, obviously it's more power, it's faster from a transfer speed. And you've got, obviously the HDMI in and out. But I think what you're really paying for here is the Thunderbolt option. So yeah, it does have some cool RGB lighting.
For gamers, this is a must.
the lighting is nice, except if I had to get this over one of the other ones we showed, I could spend half the amount of money instead of this.
Yes.
So, so I think the Thunderbolt is really the reason why people would look at this one. But that is the AVERMEDIA one. So that is another good option if you are looking to get a capture card for live streaming. Whether you're live streaming as a casual live streamer or you're doing it for gaming, for example, you do want to look at that, because this one offers Thunderbolt. And again, if you buy something that is on the cheaper side, not to say the Razer one's a bad one, it's a good one. One thing you want to keep in mind as well, this has a higher frames per second that it can operate at. It also has that Thunderbolt cable connection, which is extremely important because it just means it's going to be able to transfer things a lot faster. So that is the AVERMEDIA Live Gamer Bolt option. So definitely check that one out. Okay, Marco. So the last type of capture card I want us to talk about is, I want us to talk about a bundle real quick, actually. Let's talk about the bundle. And, this is for people to consider, like if you're getting into, if you're getting into live streaming, you're going to want a capture card, but, the capture card is for basically taking your camera and converting the signal. However, if you want to also level up your live streams, you should consider some of these other bundles that are also available. And these are actually really good value. I mean, Marco, I'm going to let you pull up, you can pull up whichever one you want. There's multiple ones in the carousel. I think maybe that XL, the Elgato Stream Deck XL one, maybe might be a good one to consider. I think let's pull that one up actually.
Okay.
So this one, when we talked about leveling up your live streams, one of the, we talked about if you want to use a better capture card, if you want to use a better capture card, for example, you want to improve your live streams. You want to add, that means you want to add a better camera. But the other thing you want to look at while you're doing this is to consider doing something like this. This is actually a capture card and an Elgato Stream Deck. So it's basically a Stream Deck or an Elgato package. And what this is going to do, so this includes, this includes the Elgato HD60s capture card. But in addition to this also includes the Stream Deck XL. And I got to say, from a pricing standpoint, unless I'm doing my math wrong here, Marco, how much is the HD60s normally?
I think it's around $300 or something.
So, I will say this, like what's rather surprising is the HD60s, it's about 140 something, 150 something dollars for the HD60s. And then the bundle here also is, this includes the 32 button programmable Elgato Stream Deck. So you're getting a very good package deal here as well for these two. It looks like it does save you about maybe 10%. But what this basically will do is you'll have the capture card to be able to plug in the right kind of camera that you have. And then you'll have the Elgato Stream Deck to be able to control parts of your live stream, whether that's switching camera angles, playing sounds, sending out, for example, a tweet right when you're about to go live, launching programs, launching certain things for your live streams. So I'd recommend seriously checking out some of these packages, because I really think these are actually a pretty good deal. What do you think about this, Marco?
Indeed. Well, I'm using a kind of a package like this because, I'm using the 15 key Stream Deck.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's useful. For instance, I'm using OBS as my virtual camera. Okay, this allows me, for instance, to bring different angles. Okay, and for instance, this is the camera I'm using with the HD60.
Yeah,
this is an old camcorder which I used to bring these angles.
Yeah.
Okay, so. Yes, I truly like this option because we want to bring, for instance, sound effects, background music, turn lights on or off, microphone, cameras, and this is a huge help for that.
Yeah, exactly. Like I just use my Elgato or my Stream Deck just to turn the lights on, for example. So I have, again, you have push button access. Do me a favor, Marco. Let's do this. Let's put you back. I'm going to put you back full screen. And I just want to have you quickly show how easy it is for you to transition between those screens. So,
okay.
Marco's using the Stream Deck and he's got the buttons programmed, as you can see.
Okay, as you can see. And I have different decks, like folders. On this one, it's just about scenes. I have this main button to get back to my main menu. Okay, here I have scenes, sound effects. This is something kind of crazy. It's a voice modificator, which is a software that it's included in the integrations of Stream Deck. It's kind of freemium, and this is background music. Okay, so I can switch here the cameras. As you can see, this is not so good webcam. Okay, so as you can see, this picture-in-picture options, and this is my surveillance mode. Okay, so this is really easy to set and to use.
Definitely, yeah. And so I love that example, by the way, that you just showed there. And again, I mean, it's a customizable product, so it's not just I can switch camera angles. Like you can switch camera angles, you can bring music in. For example, if you're like, you have different things as well, where if you switch to applications, it will actually function differently. So for example, I can have, if I'm in my design program and I need to make some changes, it has buttons just for that. And so when I go to that program, it gives me those buttons. When I go back to the stuff my camera, for example, I get the camera options. If I'm replying to things, I can have buttons set up to where when I click a button, it automatically adds like my name and my Twitter handle, for example, if I need to do that. So just kind of keep that in mind about what that thing can do. It's an Elgato Stream Deck. And so you may want to consider this. If you're buying a capture card, again, you're getting the capture card for the camera, But if you want to level up your live streams even further, you'll have the option for the Elgato Stream Deck. So that's something you definitely want to consider. Marco, I want to thank you for that fantastic demo actually there.
You're welcome.
So I mean, I gotta say, I mean, we put quite a few capture cards in the carousel, and they range in price from $10. So $10 for capture card, up to $20, all the way up to $150 for the Elgato Cam Link 4K. Then you could also, in that same ballpark, get the Elgato Hd60s. You can move to the Hd60s Plus, which is just basically, it's a newer model. Again, always improving. You can also then move up to the Elgato. Let's see, you have the Pro model as well there for your desktop users. You can move up to, if you want to, and you're like, hey, you know what? I only use Razer products. You can check out the Razer capture device as well. But again, they're great products. They're fantastic products. And again, their goal is to help you use your DSLR or your mirrorless camera as a webcam, basically. So when you're streaming, for example, and you want to use that really good camera, you need to be able to convert that signal. And that's what the capture card is going to help you do. Yes, there's software you can get for these, but guess what? Some of those softwares, they don't work with every camera. They don't let you use every camera as a webcam, for example. So Canon only supports certain models. For example, the other thing also that comes into play here, clean HDMI, where basically that's where this, all that information you see on screen, like in the bottom, you'll see like the info and you'll see the f-stop and all that other stuff on your camera. Some of the software, for example, doesn't work with those cameras. So if we have the capture card, it should then let you use it as the webcam for the most part, and then hide that information. So again, it's also about like upgrading. So if you happen to have an older camera that is not supported, for example, to be used as a webcam, maybe you want to have it as like a behind the scenes angle, or maybe it's just a prop, for example, on your live streams versus, trying to use it as your main camera and then having all the information on the screen that you really don't want people to see. So, that's going to do it for, I think, what is this, episode 84, Marco, where we've talked about capture cards. So we talked about the best capture cards for your live streams. And obviously, Marco, we are big fans of the Elgato Camlink products. We love Elgato products. Again, they just work. They're really good quality. They are, they offer quite a number of options. I mean, this is the Elgato Camlink 4K. You can go with a desktop option. If you're a desktop user, you can go with, again, a bit of an external device as well. If you need, if you want to plug into a desktop or a laptop or things like that, or something that's portable. So again, we're big fans of Elgato, but that doesn't mean you have to get the Elgato product. You could always get, a $10 Camlink, a $10 capture card if you're just starting out. Or if you really want to, kind of do things right, check out that ATEM Mini Pro that we recommended, because those basically have the ability to support 4 camera inputs, whereas the Cam Link, for example, only supports 1 at a time, and you have to buy 4 of them. 4 times $150 would be $600, versus you could get an ATEM Mini Pro, which does the conversions for you, no capture card needed. So it also does a little bit more, but keep that in mind. But that's going to do it for essentially what is episode 84 of the Launch Your Live podcast. If you're listening and you want to actually catch the Amazon Live replay of this, all you have to do is go to launchyour.live/EP84. That'll get you over to our Amazon Live show. Remember, if you're watching on Amazon Live, do us a favor and hit that follow button so that you get notified when we are going live on Amazon. Again, we talked about capture cards, the best capture cards on episode 84. Remember, if you have any questions about live streaming, you can always contact us at Launch Your Live on all the social platforms. And again, we hope you follow us here on Amazon and check out the podcast. But with that, we'll see you all next time. Thanks a lot.